Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about Days Gone and ultimately why it was such a disappointment and somewhat a failure. So the question is, why was this game such a disappointment when everybody was so eager to play this back in 2019? And unfortunately, the answer to that is pretty much everything that could have gone wrong. Now, before I get into this hiatus about why Days Gone was supposed to be one of the biggest hits in 2019 and ultimately became the biggest failures and disappointments in 2019, I should probably mention the studio that brought this game to life, being Ben Studios. Now, if you haven't heard about Ben Studios or any of the games that they pushed out besides Days Gone, I wouldn't be surprised because they really don't push out video games like that. And it could be because Sony doesn't really trust them, being is that they are a Sony first person or party company. And in 1996, they actually made their very first debuted video game, being called Buzzbeat. And it's known to be the seventh worst console video game ever. So that's probably why Sony doesn't trust them. Now, mind you, they came out with some pretty big hits called Siphon Filter, and that series did really well. It first came out in 1999 and then ended in 2007 with really nobody answering why it ended in 2007, but it still did good. And after that, they just made no games. It's been nearly 17 years now since they made a debuted game that made big hits like Siphon Filter. So, with Days Gone also not being the greatest, Sony probably isn't going to give them any more chances. Okay, but enough about Ben Studios and how they have a habit of making really bad games. Let's just get into the point of why Days Gone was a really boring and disappointing and a failure to the gaming community. And it kind of starts with, the storyline itself. Now, before I explain everything that happens in this game, from the storyline to the gameplay, from beginning to end, and it's been 5 years. So if you want to play this game, I would highly recommend you pause the video and go buy the game on Steam and play it yourself, because it has been 5 years and I am free to spoil everything of this game right now. Now, to explain why a lot of gamers did not like the storyline from the very beginning to the end, and it starts with our main character, Deacon, and his horrible decisions that he made from the very get-go. At the very beginning of the game, we see that everybody is freaking out. Obviously, people are running around, things are burning. I believe we see freakers are already running, which is basically their way of calling zombies. And we are introduced to our main character, Deacon, and his best friend slash partner in a motorcycle gang, Boozer. Boozer looks scary, but he's actually the biggest biggest teddy bear in this game, compared to every crazy psychotic person that we have or that we're going to be introduced to. But as we're seeing them walking around, they're obviously searching for someone, being Sarah, who we are then introduced later on in the game is Deacon's wife. Now, a lot of people say they didn't really see that Deacon and Sarah were together because of Deacon's stale emotional reaction to when he finds Sarah injured. I didn't really get that. There was obviously something between them, but that was just one of the partial criticisms that the game received. And you guys should see it yourself and leave a comment to what you thought about it. I'll leave a video in right now. But anyway, Deacon and Sarah and Boozer they're fighting each other, and Sarah somehow realizes or knows that there's a helicopter on top of the roof that's right next to them. And no one questions, how did you know there was a helicopter aborting people? But anyway, so we all go up to the helicopter, and this is where a lot of people are like, what the hell, Deacon? And it's because the helicopter, James O'Brien, remember that name, the person who's on there is like, hey, I can only fit 2 more people. That's it. I can only fit 2 more people. Now, who do you think should be the 2 people that goes on that helicopter? And if you say Deacon and Sarah, you're wrong. No. Sarah and Deacon, no. Deacon decides to leave Sarah on the helicopter by herself.
What?
And the whole plan was, hey, he talks to O'Brien, who, remember that name, do not forget that name. And he talks to O'Brien, and O'Brien says, we're going over to a base. And Deacon is like, oh, well, we can just follow the helicopter. I'm not going to leave my best friend Boozer, who can obviously do the same thing and survive by himself. No, I'm going to leave my wife on this helicopter and we're going to travel together. Good plan, not a bad plan, can't lie about that, but the helicopter crashes and Sarah allegedly dies. That's a big word, allegedly. To continue on with the story and push it more forward, we are now 3 to 5 years later in present time and playing as Deacon alongside with Boozer, traveling in Oregon trying to find someone. But this time we are not finding them to help them, we are finding them to hunt them, because Deacon and Boozer have this mindset that whoever this person is, they might have actually harmed one of their connections throughout the camps. And we'll get more into the camp system later throughout the story. But it should be mentioned, it should be strongly mentioned, that the story or the player has no clue what happened to Sarah. We don't know that she might have passed away in a helicopter crash. We don't know that she's even alive. We just know something could have happened to her because she is no longer with Deacon or Boozer and they're not with her. Now, after we find this person, about a good 5 minutes later, after we do what we need to do with him, we are now encountered by the Rippers. And I am really trying to find the best way to describe the Rippers. First of all, oh my God, these people, man. It is horrible. Okay, so like I said, after 5 to 10 minutes after dealing with the guy that we found, we are introduced to one of the biggest antagonistic groups, the most insane antagonistic groups of this game, being called the Rippers. Now, long story short, Rippers are a religious cult that are with chronically insane people who target particularly Deacon and Boozer because their cult leader, who is Carlos, aka Jesse, has some background history with Deacon and Boozer. And how we first introduced them is that, of course, we start fighting each other, and unfortunately, Boozer gets captured, they hold him down, and they give him a 3rd-degree burn. Remember that, because that's actually really important. And I will give Finn Studios this, how they revealed why Carlos, aka Jesse, has some type of history with them was possibly is the biggest part of the game. But because it was the biggest part of the game, it was also the most disappointing part of the game. They did this character, Jesse, aka Carlos, so wrong because they did not give him enough screen time. They gave literally the biggest antagonistic person of this game, the person who had the most potential, the person who should have had the most background stories / flashbacks as much as they did in this game, very little time. And it was like, what, you built this character up for no reason, or you built this character up just for him to not even show up in the game most of the time. Like, guys, when I say they had wasted so much potential on Jesse and even his entire cult, they did. Jesse was built up like he was gonna burn every single camp in Days Gone, maybe the entire world, if he did not find Deacon and Boozer. And the fact that this man ended up convincing many people to not only burn themselves, make scars on themselves, shave their head, but he made them believe that freakers, who were zombies, were gods. And do you guys want to know what these people ended up doing to freakers? Besides eating them, he actually made them mate with them.
Disgusting!
Yes, you heard that right. Humans were mating with zombies. Anyway, getting back on track, after Boozer gets his 3rd-degree burn from the Rippers and Deacon fights them off, they realize that he needs to quickly get some type of emergency care in a zombie apocalyptic world. Luckily though, Deacon, who's had some camp ties with people, not on the best of terms, ends up finding a couple of antibiotics to make sure that Boozer's arm doesn't get burnt. Or
You idiot!
I'm keeping it. Doesn't get affected, not burnt. But anyway, before he's able to actually get these antibiotics for Boozer, he has to do a lot of missions and a lot of side missions, which is where things start to get very tedious, especially if you're driving or riding a motorcycle in the state of Oregon. Now, this is where I personally felt like Days Gone started to go downhill within gameplay and missions, because when I say that it felt like real time of 10 to 15 minutes of traveling from one destination to another, I am not being over exaggerating. And it didn't help that they made sure not to make it immersive or enjoyable to travel throughout the state of Oregon. And what I mean by that is that, usually with open world games, there's usually a soundtrack behind you, or if you're playing a Grand Theft Auto or Saints Row game, there's going to be a radio station playing some type of music. But for Days Gone, since they are in a zombie apocalyptic world, you're not going to hear any radio stations playing any music. You're going to hear some random person near a camp spouting out US with Deacon saying very few responses about it. So most of the time you are just traveling, hearing nothing, which caused a lot of gamers to either not finish the game or complain about how boring and tedious it was. And it got even more tedious because the one thing they tried to make sure was that the players did not get to their destination in an easy manner. Usually, like a lot of games, if you have an open world, you can stop by or try to defeat somebody as a side mission, or you might even get trapped, like Grand Theft Auto's famous mission. Michael tries to help out a woman and he gets shot or gets shot at, and you guys know what I'm saying. It's a trap basically. But within Deacon's matter, he has 4 enemies, and it's a consistent always trying to kill him out of nowhere. You have your survivors from other camps that try to kill Deacon, or at least injure him and steal his supplies and take at least half of his gas tank, if not all. Then you have Reapers, who are again trying to kill Deacon because the main guy, Carlos, has an agenda against him. And then of course you have your zombies, both your animals and your humanoid zombies. And even though they're not the worst part of the game, having a zombie like the Howler is the worst thing to happen to you, especially if you're not paying attention to where you're driving at, or she might just appear out of nowhere. And to explain her goal, she literally screams, knocks you off your bike, has an entire horde of zombies coming after you, and bless you if you don't have enough gas in your tank to drive away, because you will have to fend yourself off, killing all those zombies. And by the way, usually with her, there's usually one big buff zombie who is hard to kill and refuses to die with about 3 bombs. So first off, before I explain, don't judge me about my hair, but one thing I forgot to put in the video about the Howler specifically is that even if you killed all the zombies, if she's still alive, she will continue to bring on more zombies. So if you're out of ammo and you're out of gas, you're pretty much shit out of luck. She has traumatized me, and I will never forgive her for that. And yes, it's usually a woman. A Howler is a woman. She screams and she just steals you away from your destination. And it makes it worse because usually she's right around the corner of where your next mission is supposed to be. I swear they coded her on purpose on that, and I'm gonna move along. But anyway, yeah. And by the way, okay, this is a really fun part about these people who ambushes Deacon a lot, is that if they so happen to kill you, let's say Reapers or the survivors of other camps kill you, you have to start all the way back to your previous mission with no gas in your tank. So Deacon is forced to either go travel on foot and find gas, or drag his bike all the way down to a gas station. And you're probably thinking it can't be that bad traveling because they have a fast travel system, and you're right. But guess what? Most of the time it screws you over, which is what made a lot of gamers, including myself, mad.
You know how much I sacrificed?
It screws you over because depending on where you're traveling to, you're most likely going to have no gas in your tank left, or less than half. And most of the time, the gas stations are filled with huge black bear, grizzly bear zombies who are willing to just rip you apart at any minute that they see you, or these really badass kids that obviously, they obviously need some discipline in their lives, because they will make your life a living hell just trying to get some gas. And you gotta take them out. The kids gotta go. The kids gots to go.
Oh my god. You fucking kids! I've got places to be!
But this is where we're all like, if you try to make it as realistic as possible, and you do have a radio station, and somebody out there is spewing out random stuff, why couldn't you make this game more immersive while traveling? You guys they could have, let's be honest, as realistic as they want it to be, Who really is going to be out there spitting out crazy religious stuff on the radio and not have some type of music with it? Like, could you imagine, hey guys, let's go ahead and praise these zombies and play freaking Highway to Hell? There was definitely more reason to why this game was so boring and tedious to play, and it was definitely more than just the long road trips that we had to take in silence, but it was also because the missions were just so repetitive. Let's remember, Deacon's main mission is to find antibiotics so then Boozer doesn't end up losing his arm or potentially dying from an infection that he got because of the third-degree burn. But then you see that within the game progresses, Deacon has to do consistent side missions for other people just to get those antibiotics, which means he's going to different camps, he's gathering supplies, he's killing zombies that they want them to kill, he's killing people that they want them to kill. He's just doing a lot of the same thing over and over. Like, I'm personally surprised that Deacon didn't start cursing people out because of how many times he had to do the same exact thing, the same exact people over and over and over again, and it made no sense. But what made it even worse was that it took more than halfway past the game to actually get something started, and that starts with James O'Brien. I told you he'll come back. Now remember, I did say to pay attention to that name, O'Brien, or keep his name in your mind at least, because he is one of the most interesting, most important characters of this game and its storyline. If you don't remember who he is, he was a neuroscientist who told Deacon, I can only fit 2 more people on this helicopter. What do you want to do? And Deacon chooses to stay with Boozer. Interesting choice still, but I'm not going to go on with that. I already spoke about it. Anyway, going on moving forward, Deacon miraculously finds this one person at the many neuroscience stations that they have within the state of Oregon. And of course, when he sees him, he approaches him immediately because remember that helicopter was supposedly, or had supposedly crashed. Everyone's supposed to die. And O'Brien is still alive. So Deacon approaches him and he's like, hey, why aren't you dead? And O'Brien was like, good point. I am supposed to be dead, but I'm not. What do you want? And of course, the main question is Sarah alive and how come she's not looking for me? Now, O'Brien being O'Brien the scientist, he's like, well, I can't answer you the second question, but I can definitely give you the answer to your first one. Yes, she is alive, and I do know where she is. But before I reveal where she's at, I need you to do a couple more things for me. And of course, Deacon gives in, and that's another person who he has to do a mission for. But unlike the other ones, these ones felt like they were actually going somewhere, and they did, with a lot of information that was revealed by O'Brien and the missions themselves. And when I say there was a lot revealed, they were so interesting. It makes me mad that they did not do more with these missions. Unlike the other missions that felt very tedious to do and repetitive, these missions made by O'Brien were not repetitive at all. Well, that's a lie. They were repetitive, but they progressed the story in some way, in some form, and they helped us learn more about O'Brien himself, the neuroscientist, and how the zombies are actually evolving. And I kid you not, they are evolving into humans. And one of the missions on the neuroscientist, and again, this is spoilers, the Deacon finds out, or finds recordings and finds out that these zombies are essentially not only taking showers, they're seen wearing jewelry, they're just acting like humans.
Wearing jewelry? What's the significance of that?
These things have been out here for 2 years, scratching and clawing at us and each other.
Yeah.
Try putting a gold watch on a baboon for 2 years. Set it loose in the wild and see what happens to it.
Okay, I get it.
This watch looks new.
Really? So
That means this subject has either been taking care of it, or has recently
put it on? Shit, I thought they were all,
lucidity. Victims of stage 2 virus infections seem to retain some level of vestigial memory.
Oh, shit.
No shit. Look at its clothes. They're almost clean, right? I mean, not clean, but...
Jesus, what do you think they're wearing?
No.
So with that aspect in mind, we all have to question, do these zombies know what they're doing by attacking humans? Are they purposely trying to grow the zombie apocalypse? What is going on with these zombies? And do you think they continued on with that storyline? Nope. No, they didn't. They kind of just threw that away. Put a pin in it.
You know what? It's a fair question. Let's do this. Let's put a pin in it. Boop, pin in. There you go. Now,
And they really did kind of just bypass the fact that the zombies were acting like humans. And it brought so many questions personally to me, because when I see the kid zombies, technically, if we're thinking realistically, there should be no such thing as a kid zombie. All those kid zombies should be dead, should be gone. They're bad, get rid of them. But that makes you think, okay, are the zombies mating with each other and making these children? Or are these kid zombies just the descendants of the people from the Rippers who are mating with them as well? And oh man, I really hope that's not the case. But if they're acting like humans, that should actually be the case, that the zombies are knowing that they need to grow their population in order to essentially take over the world, right? That was what my thought was, but I don't know. That's a whole different story, I guess. But to move on forward, unfortunately, O'Brien's missions did have a lot of bugs with them, which is where I feel like Sony did not give Bendy Studios enough time to actually play test them, because a lot of these bugs could have been avoided, but they weren't. And don't get me wrong, a lot of games have bugs to the point where they can get tedious, but these bugs within Days Gone actually stop the progression of the game itself. One of the most approached bugs that a lot of gamers had ran into, including myself when Days Gone first released back in 2019, was called the Reacher bug. The Reacher bug, in long story short, was a mission that O'Brien had sent Deacon over into a dark cave and explained to Deacon that he had sent over 3 scientists to study a new freaker called the Reacher, who has the ability to run really fast, and he didn't know that his scientists were dead or alive, and if they were dead, confirm and collect the information and head back out. And as simple as this task may seem, it turned out to be really just a pain in the butt to do, because a lot of us were stuck on that mission for hours due to a terrible bug that they had left in there. Not on purpose, of course, but it really could have been avoidable if someone had just done QA testing on it. And how this bug worked was that you can find all of the scientists. They're all dead, by the way. You find all the scientists, you collect the information, and nothing happens. That's one outcome. Another outcome, once you restarted after waiting about a good 10-15 minutes or traveling around to figure out what was going on, was that you find all the scientists and the freaker comes, but you shoot it one time and it's instantly dead. Nothing happens after that. So, after taking some time of doing research and realizing that there was also something wrong with the game, I found out that there's a specific pattern that you were supposed to do to find out or find these scientists in order for the actual event to happen, which is a horrible bug, because at first a lot of people might give the excuse maybe it was a puzzle that we were supposed to do it in, or maybe they told us to find the scientists in a specific way, but no, that wasn't the case. O'Brien never stated find these scientists in a specific way in order for something to happen. They never gave out any hints that it was a puzzle. It was literally just coded that way. And for those of you guys who aren't really into the game development terminology, what they did, and what I'm assuming the game developers did on accident if they weren't coding in them in C++, was using trigger boxes, something similar in Unreal Engine style. And what these trigger boxes do is that every time or anytime the player walks through them or approaches them, something is supposed to happen. So for example, if you have a quick time event to happen, that's because a trigger box was there, you ran into it, and immediately it's like, hey, quickly press X. And while the animation plays, that something bad is about to happen to the player if they don't hit that certain button. But unfortunately, what they did was they coded it so you have to find these players in a specific order, or these scientists in a specific order, in order for you to continue on moving forward within the game, which is not what's supposed to happen. But moving on forward, even when you do figure out that you're supposed to find these scientists in a specific order and actually complete it, the freaker itself was not that, it wasn't impressive like you thought it would be. When you hear a zombie that's supposed to run really fast, you expect it to run really fast, intimidating, especially in a dark cave like that was, and it wasn't. It was actually, that was possibly the easiest freaker that we had in all of the games. playthrough, and it's disappointing because you had me going to a dark cave, and now I'm just sitting here looking at a dead zombie that was supposed to destroy me in like 5 seconds. Like I said, O'Brien was actually possibly the best part of the game itself because he did help progress the game storyline, and we eventually find out that he himself is turning into a freaker. The only reason why he's studying these freakers to see how he could be at his full max capacity, because he's still functionable, he's still a human, he's just ready to see his capacity as a god. Now, you would think they would do more with him. You would think that he would potentially become an antagonist, but he's really not. They kind of just veer that to the side because Deacon goes straight over to Sarah to see if she's okay, if she's doing well. And lo and behold, she is. And she's living in a really big camp, a camp that's doing well, and kind of just pays no fact that Deacon even still is alive or exists. But that's just the story at this point, guys. There's really nothing really important about Deacon and Sarah's relationship, because as many times as they show their flashbacks, I'm sorry, I really don't care about them walking in flowers and how they met each other.
Don't care, still don't care.
How he eventually turned her into a biker girl. Their storyline was just so boring. I felt like the relationship was probably just stale and plain. But I will say this, even though their flashbacks together was horrifically boring, her flashbacks was pretty interesting. In fact, I felt like they could have given her not more screen time, but given us more information about her, because she was part of the neuroscientist group. So yeah, she was part of the science group that accidentally released an entire zombie apocalyptic virus into the entire world and ruined everyone's lives. But with the minor 1 to 2 flashbacks, we don't see what she actually does, but we see that she herself does not know what her group is creating. And when she does somehow find out, she tries to stop it, or at least stop it from releasing it to the public, but of course it failed, and that's how the story progressed. So with that being said, once again, another character who should have had more time, at least within the video game, or more time with flashbacks that were useful. And what I mean by that is not seeing her and Deacon walk in grass fields and talking about their love for each other, because who cares? We've seen that you guys barely you guys barely love each other at this point, how still the relationship is. But yeah, no, it was just another character. She was literally just another character that had so much backstory with them that it was just thrown into the dust, essentially. As I'm nearing an end to this video, you're probably wondering, did we just forget about Boozer, or is he not important? And the answer to that was kind of both, okay? Trust me, as someone who was actually hoping to have more Boozer in the storyline, because he did seem like a comedic relief compared to Deacon's stale, edgy boy appeal or attitude, he really was kind of just forgotten a lot of the times within the mission. Mind you, the main mission was to get antibiotics for his arm, which eventually we do, and he does end up getting healed, but by 95% of the game, he's stuck at a camp because of his arm. And as I know, again, as realistic as that is, because someone with a third-degree burn cannot travel around or do anything due to the fact that you can get an infection and lose your entire arm, it just made no sense to introduce him as a main side character and not use him a lot more than what we did. The Boozer was literally introduced to be his best friend, to the point where he would leave his wife alone on an helicopter and go ride with him all the way, everywhere. That was his ride or die man, which is an odd sentence to say about two best friends, but that's what the case was. But thankfully, within the ending of the game, he does go on a final mission with us, which is to find Carlos, which is where, if you actually pay attention to the conversations that they're having while they're riding their bikes, and when I say pay attention to a lot of the conversations that they have that you might just zone out on without the flashbacks, you're going to find out that Carlos and Deacon and Boozer were all in the same biker gang. You notice that I just said without flashbacks as they're talking about what happened between Deacon, Boozer, and Carlos, is because this is possibly one of the main events that we should have seen a flashback about, because they revealed that the reason why Carlos hates Deacon and Boozer is the fact that they gave him a third-degree burn on his back. Yes, Carlos is rightfully mad at Deacon and Boozer for giving him a third-degree burn on his back. And I will say I appreciate Bendy Studios for this nerdy fact, because I did not know that real-life biker gangs do require anybody who leaves that gang or anybody who shows dishonor or loyalty to that gang to get their tattoo burnt off of their skin. Now, I would say just let me get an over tattoo, or just let me get it laser removed so I don't have to have a third-degree burn on my body. But that's just their rules, and I'm not part of a biker gang, so I don't understand, and I'm going to stay out of that territory. But moving on forward, yes, Carlos went insane after they gave him a third-degree burn, which, as someone who does have a third-degree burn, I can say rightfully so that shit hurts. And I probably would be going after those two too. But they tried to make it seem like he deserved it, because in the storyline that we don't get to see but only hear, apparently Carlos was kind of a mess before the zombie apocalypse happened. I'm talking about he was on hardcore drugs. Allegedly, he was abusive towards people in the bar. He was just starting a lot of things up to the point where they had to kick him out of the game. And as much as I would say justice, there's no way I would be okay getting a third-degree burn on my body from two people who are supposed to feel like family and not go insane. And again, that's a lot. That's a lot, and it's a bit extreme in my opinion. You're probably wondering what happens when Deacon and Boozer find Carlos and approach him, and nothing happens at all. That's it. We approach him, we get rid of him, and we kind of just move on like nothing happened.
Oh, come on!
And that's the end of the story, really. That's the end of part of the story, at least, because let's be honest, Sarah and her love story with Deacon wasn't really that entertaining, and you really weren't doing much afterwards. Like, they give you the option of allowing you to travel around and do more side missions if you want to, but a lot of us were just happy to be done with the game in the first place, and we were not going to continue on doing any side missions that did not progress on the story. I'm sorry, it makes no sense, because they literally had an entire plot hole that they just decided not to finish, which was about the zombies and how they were evolving. It was about how they were taking showers, wearing jewelry, potentially knowing what they're doing to the humans, and they didn't finish it. And I'm wondering if they had plans of believing that if they got a sequel, they were going to continue on that theory, but you should have done it within that game, because if you had played the game yourselves, you would have seen how boring it was. At the end of the day, I'm not sure if Sony did not give Bendy Studios enough time to complete it, or if Bendy Studios themselves was just content with what they had made. But that was my opinion, and I would like to hear your guys' opinion on this game. Did you guys play it? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Go ahead and leave a comment below, and please like and subscribe. It is for free. It does not take much to subscribe or even like a video. Please and thank you.